Hello everyone and welcome to this new series of tutorials, where I will answer your questions about Blender with a video. In this first video, I'll answer Don Kipsu, who asked me how to easily realign the different parts of a salamander devastator. When you import several parts of a miniatures into Blender, it could often happen that nothing is aligned, and therefore you will have to reposition everything ourselves. So of course, you could just move and rotate each element by hand. With some patience you could achieve that, but that would be very laborious. So in this video, I'll show you a few tricks to do it more efficiently. Let's start with the right arm. The first thing to do is to place the origin on a better place, like on a joint, so here at the shoulder joint. And we already know how to do that. We just have to enable Transform Effects Only Origin option, and then using the gizmo, we can move the origin to the shoulder joint. But I'll show you a faster and more accurate method. I start by isolating this object with the slash key, then I switch to an orthogonal view, well aligned toward y-axis. And then I position the 3D cursor where I want the origin to be located. So for that, I hold Shift key, and with the right mouse button, I can place the 3D cursor anywhere I want. Okay, so now if we go to the Object menu, Set Origin, we see that we can place the origin on the 3D cursor's position. Nothing simpler. Let's do the same thing for the left arm. We place the 3D cursor with Shift and right-click, and again, go to the Object menu, Set Origin, and place the origin on the 3D cursor. Now we will position the arms to the body. Before we're going to orient arms correctly with a 90 degrees rotation along the z-axis. And there, rather than positioning the arm by doing different transformations, we are going to learn how to use the Snap menu, which allows us to play with the 3D cursor to position things. So with a side view, we will position the 3D cursor where we want to place the arm. On the same joint we place the arm's origin, so around there. And then, we simply select the arm, and in the Object menu, Snap, we can now position the selected object on the 3D cursor. And here it is. With few clicks, the object is almost perfectly positioned. Now we can do small adjustments, like make the arm intersecting well into the body or better center the shoulder. Then we do the same thing for the other arm. So we first position the 3D cursor, I select the second arm, and this time I'm going to use a shortcut to display the Snap menu, which is Shift+S. Then I choose Selection to Cursor to move the arm to the 3D cursor. We adjust a little bit and that's it. Now let's move on to the melta. So as before, we will position the object's origin to one of the pivot points, so one of the two hands. Here I think it will be easier to use the hand holding the melta, so we will position the origin on the right hand. This time, to place the 3D cursor, we won't use Shift plus right-click. We will rather use the object's geometry to place the 3D cursor exactly where we want. So I switch to Edit mode with the Tab key, and I select this vertex which is perfectly centered on the joint. Then we open the Snap menu again with Shift+S, and here we can see that it's possible to move the 3D cursor to the selection. And like that, the 3D cursor is perfectly centered on the hand joint. Then, we go back to the Object menu, Set Origin, Origin to 3D Cursor, and here you go. So the last thing to do is to position the melta on the arm using the 3D cursor. So as we did before, we select the object, switch to Edit mode with the Tab key, we select the centered vertex, and then with Shift-S, we place the 3D cursor on this vertex. So what will happen when we will place the weapon on the 3D cursor is, the vertex I used to position the origin of the weapon will be positioned exactly on the vertex that I used to position the 3D cursor. So here we go, I select the weapon, then with Shift-S, I move my object on the 3D cursor, and that's it. And now we just have to do few rotations along different axes to align the left hand with the left arm, and as you can see, the melta is rotating around only one of the two hands, and that's what is making things easier, because you only need to line up one of the two hands, rather than having to do it for both joints. And here we've done what we wanted to do. But if you're greedy, I'll show you how to go a little further with a simple rig. Let's isolate the object, and then what we will try to do is make the line formed by these two pivot points perfectly aligned with the global x-axis. So we imagine that there is a line between these 2 points, and this line must be parallel to the x global axis. To do that, we can switch to transparency mode with Alt-Z, and we will use one of the grid line as reference. So I place the origin on any line of the grid, and then by rotating the object, I will try to line up the left hand to the same line. So pretty much like that for y-axis. And we do the same with the z-axis. So again, I place the origin on one of the grid line. And with the rotation, I try to place the center of the left hand lined up with the right hand. Okay, so now we can see that along x, our two hands are on the same line. And along z it's not too bad either. Now we will apply the rotation, so that the local axis orientation will be aligned to the axis formed by the two hands, and therefore lined up with the x-axis global orientation. So to apply, we can go to the Object menu, Apply, Rotation, and there you go, our 2 points are now aligned on the x-axis, both in local and global orientation. Okay, now that we've done that, we're going to constrain the melta. We're going to force it to orient itself towards another object that we will then use to orient the weapon to the left arm. This new object needs to be positioned on the left hand. So in Edit mode, we select the central vertex, and with the Snap menu, we position the 3D cursor on this vertex. Then with Shift-A, we can add an empty object, that is to say an object without consistency, but which can be used as a tool. I'm going to increase its size in the object's data properties first, and then we go to the Constraint tab. And here we can add a constraint called Track To. First, we must pick a target. The target is the object to which the melta will be forced to look at. So let's pick the empty object with the eyedropper. Then we need to set alignment option. So we want the top of the weapon to be z-axis, so I choose Z for up, and I want the weapon to point towards X, so I choose X for track axis. And here you go, now we have 2 pivots to align the weapon, one using the object's origin, which will help to position the right hand, and another one with the empty object, which will be used to position the left hand, because the weapon will always orient itself toward the empty object. And with this setup, it will be so easy to align our melta. So I leave isolation mode. I place the 3D cursor onto the right arm with the Snap menu. Then we align the right hand on the 3D cursor, and there we place the first joint. Then I place the 3D cursor on the left arm, and I align the empty object on the left arm. And voila! It's already almost perfect like that, but it allows us to do small adjustments, because indeed, if we move the empty object, the melta will stay attached to the right arm by rotating around it. And conversely, if we move the right arm, the weapon will point towards the left arm, and thus the hand will remain oriented to the left arm. It's already awesome, but we can set up things even better. If we want to be able to orient the right arm, it would be better if the weapon could remain connected, and for that nothing could be simpler, let's just make the melta child of the arm. So we first select the melta, then the arm, so that the arm will be the active element, and in the Object menu, Parent, Object, I make the melta child of the arm. We do the same thing with the empty, which will be a child of the left arm, and this time we will use the Ctrl-P shortcut and choose Object Keep Transform. And now if, for example, I want to prevent the melta from getting into the knees, I can rotate the arm a little, and the melta will automatically orient itself to stay aligned with both arms. This way you can adjust the pose very easily. And there you go. I hope this video will be useful to you. If you have yourself a question about any Blender subject, do not hesitate to ask it in the question answer channel on my Discord server. The link is in the description. Thank you for watching and see you later.